This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to This Week in Alabama Politics. Folks, we're very fortunate tonight to have a young man running for the Alabama State Senate as our guest. Will Barfoot is a lifetime resident of the River Region and is a candidate for the state Senate seat being vacated by Dick Brubaker. It's actually Senate District 25. A while back, Larry Dixon was in that seat, and it's changed somewhat over the years, but it's basically the River Region seat, and Will is in for his first race in politics. He's a young lawyer here in Montgomery, and we thank you for taking time to be with us, and we thank you viewers for watching Alabama Politics. Will, good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Steve.
Will and I claim kin. His Uncle Joel and I have called each other cousin for years because I do know my family tree, and it has Barfoots in it because his people and my people, you know, Montgomery, North Pike County and South Montgomery County combined.
That's right.
And my mama's people were Grants, but my mama Grant had Barfoot family. So we are, I've told Joel, we kid about it. It's way off, but I've seen the history. And actually, Southern Montgomery and Northern Pike were in the same county at one time.
And I think probably from the Youngblood side, too, there may even
That's
be
right.
some secondary relationships there, kin folks being related to each other. But you close enough where we can claim each other if we need to and don't have to if we don't have to.
That's right. But there sure is right there in that family tree, the Barfoots. When I met Joel for the first time, I said, Joel, you know, I'm kin to you, I believe. Now, Joel served on the county commission for a while.
He did. Montgomery County in 1980 and first ran as a Republican then. I think in 1980 when I was just a kid, that thought process was probably that he was crazy to run as a Republican. Of course, and
It wasn't ready yet. Well, it hadn't changed yet.
That's right. But that was in 1980 was, of course, the year of the Reagan beat Jimmy Carter in that term. So a lot of
he won as a Republican.
He did, and then was reelected in 1984. County Commission, and then in 1986 when Governor Hunt was elected, he was asked to come be the chairman of the State Pardons and Parole Board, which he served on that for a 6-year term.
Yeah, so that's a 6-year term.
That is. It ended in 92.
Is that job paying job? I guess it is, isn't it?
I guess so. He had a wife and children he had to feed, so I suspected it.
I didn't know. well, Joel and Will, you grew up. Now you're like you say, your ancestors are from South Montgomery County.
They
are.
Y'all
might have Pike Road before it's cool.
That's exactly right. We were, tell folks back in Pike Road that I grew up in the late 70s is a lot different than now. Good folks out there now still, but back then it was a more rural place. My family farmed and was in law enforcement, and the Pike Road that of my childhood was a Pike Road that you could ride down the road, and when you saw a car, everybody waved, and that you knew where they were going, probably what they were doing. Still a great and wonderful community.
Will, so you were born and raised right there in Pike Road?
I was. Still live out there. Wife and 5 children. My oldest child is married, and I'm a grandfather as of this past September. Proud granddaddy. So
boy or girl?
Boy. Her and her husband live over in Auburn, where he's in his last year of pharmacy school.
Will, where did you go to high school up here?
Went to Jeff Davis High School, graduated in 1989, and stayed in Montgomery County. I didn't. I was never. I always wanted to. I was never an athlete. I thought I was better than I was.
Brubaker didn't either, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't know if he did or not, but he probably would have been good at whatever he decided to do.
Dick Brubaker's a smart guy, and I've loved having him on the show over the years. And when you're elected and you come back, I hope you'll come back every year, because I like to have the state senators from this river region on my show, because most of my viewers are from here in the river region. This show is in the river region and throughout the Wiregrass, but the biggest viewing audience is in your Senate district.
Sure.
So I've had Dick Brubaker and Clyde Chambliss and Quentin Ross on over the years. And it's a good way to talk to your constituents about everything. one thing that's for sure, all three of y'all Senate districts, whoever wins the Quentin Ross district, have the same thing, will be one of the three most populated state employee districts in the state.
Absolutely.
And so state employees are very important to your district.
Absolutely. As I told you, most of my family was in law enforcement, agriculture. We've got a lot of teachers in the family. My mother was a teacher. My sister was a teacher. But state employees, after my daddy retired from City of Montgomery as a police officer in the early 80s, he worked for the state Department of Corrections investigator with them, with the I&I division. A lot of relatives have worked with the state, and I understand the economic impact that has here in the River Region, District 25. A lot of times state employees get beat up, or government employees get beat up, and it's just like anything else we do. There are good and there are bad. But I know that by and large, the state employees are doing the best job that they can. They contribute wonderfully to get more work done than what we pay them on a regular basis. So the important part of the district.
Well, I was talking to Matt MacArthur, and I've spoken to the State Employees Association a couple of times at the annual convention, and he always introduces me by saying that I had a 100% voting record with state employees, and I did. But the reason I did is basically what you're saying is if you grow up knowing a lot of people who are state employees, for example, my county of Pike, we're close enough to Montgomery that we have a lot of folks that commute
Sure.
to Montgomery to work. But furthermore, the Highway Division office was located there on the 7th Division, and Troy and Pike County are big enough that every agency had an office there, human resources or whatever. So the guys who coached me in Little League Baseball and taught me in Sunday school were state employees. And so I knew that, having grown up there, that a lot of folks were state employees in my county. And if you gave state employees a pay raise, it was just like giving a new industry.
Right, right.
I mean, it wouldn't be that way for Muscle Shoals.
No, not all
Somebody who
districts.
came from Mobile or Muscle Shoals, but from your area of the state, Mac and them need somebody that's going to stay up and fight for state employees.
Well, you know,
not just vote with them, fight with them.
Well, we've been asked, I think state employees have been asked to do more with less. And by the way, I'm a fiscal conservative, so if you can do more with less, great. But at some point in time, you've got to realize that those employees and those state employees, you know, you can only ask so much. It's the last pay raise state employees had. There's one on this year, but they went for how many years without a pay raise? 9 years.
I think, yeah. Old Mac does a good job. The funniest thing, you probably realize this about politics already, just running your first race, is, and it'll be really apropos this year, because everything's on the ballot. See, you got an open Senate seat that you're running for, but you've got every legislative seat, every sheriff's race, plus every statewide office on the ballot. So name ID becomes important.
It does.
Old Mac was running, Mac at one time was chairman of the Ethics Commission. Did you know that?
I did.
For a little while, way back yonder, and he got some good publicity. Mac was going to make a run for politics. He's going to run for Attorney General. He may have told you this.
I don't remember that.
He was going to run for Attorney General, and he figured he got a little head start getting some name ID. It was open, Attorney General's race. So he got this best political guru to run his campaign for him, and he's going to run a benchmark poll. And Mac was anxiously awaiting the results of the poll, and the guy called him and said, "Come over here, I got your numbers." And Mac almost ran over there and sat down. He said, he had a big old voluminous thing on his desk, and he said, "Well, now, Mac, I'm going to give you some good news. You've got 6% name identification statewide." And old Mac looked at him incredulously and said, "Well, the only thing good I know about is I can run through Winn-Dixie butt naked and nobody know who I am." You know, but a lot of them think, all these state senators think they got statewide name identification, you know, because they see their name in the paper a couple of times.
It's a bubble, isn't it? Living in a bubble.
I bet you the only one that's got 10% name ID is Alvin Holmes.
Probably so.
Alvin's probably the only one that's got 10%
Probably
name ID.
so.
May have some that would be close to it,
Right.
you know, or something. But the state senate is a very powerful position. Now tell folks where that district. Tell where all it is, so they'll know if you're in their district.
Great question. It's all of Crenshaw County, and that has been fairly new. Before 2010, Crenshaw County was in Wendell Mitchell's district. But it's all of Crenshaw County. It is about 3/4 of Montgomery County, and then about half of Elmore County.
What part of Montgomery County? Pike Road, obviously.
It is, and generally speaking, I tell somebody without getting specific about the street
Is Wind Lakes
numbers.
in it?
Wind Lakes is, Sturbridge is.
Sturbridge is pretty big now.
It is. 90% of South Montgomery County is. Hope Pole's the dividing line for part of it, but if you think of Montgomery County as a clock, it's basically from 12 till 9 is in district. So about 3/4 of Montgomery.
So what percent of the voters in Montgomery County?
You know, I haven't analyzed those numbers yet. My guess is it's probably going to be about half the voters in Montgomery
And then
County.
40% in Elmore, or 35?
Probably 30 in Elmore and 20 in
Crenshaw.
Crenshaw, or 25-25 split, something along those lines. Feel really good about Crenshaw County. Of course, Elmore County was.
Well, now you got the Alpha endorsement, hadn't you?
No, I did not get the Alpha
that's right.
endorsement. The last we were unanimous in Crenshaw County. It was a 12-0 vote, and we were one vote away from tying it up in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
And felt really good about that, though.
Did you know old Bubba Trotman well?
No, I didn't.
Bubba, you know, he's from Troy.
Sure, I did.
I think about he was one of the first people out at Pike Road.
Yeah, and you know the Trotman place over there. There was a donation 2 years ago to the Pike Road school system, where my youngest 3 children are attending school.
Gordon does a good job.
He does, and he's been very active out there. You know, one of the, I guess, tough things to do is you want growth, but at the same time you want to retain the character that was Pike Road. You don't want growth just for the sake of growth. Unbridled growth, and Gordon, I think, has done a good job of trying to retain the character of what Pike Road really is and why people came.
He has a real good plan for Pike Road. He's been on our show several times. I had him on once or twice, but for his job is higher education, but also we spent half time talking about the city of Pike Road, because he has got a long-range plan to control that growth,
Right.
which is going to happen. It may be the fastest-growing town in the state.
I'm fortunate to serve on the Pike Road Volunteer Fire Department board, and was appointed by Representative Reed Ingram when he was on the county commission. The area that Pike Road covers, or at least the fire department covers, geographically is larger than the city of Montgomery Fire Department, which is, it was an amazing thing to know. We don't, there's so many houses being built out in Pike Road right now that is going to be a challenge to keep up with that growth. But we've got some good leadership within the volunteer fire department as well.
Good. You never would have thought growing up what Pike Road would have done, would you?
Would not have. It was soybean fields and cow pastures. And
what did y'all do agriculture? Y'all have cattle?
no, a few cows Granddaddy did. Most of it was soybeans, corn, and even people scratch their head when I say this, but I remember them planting some wheat back in the 70s and maybe the early 80s. Of course, most of everybody that lived out in Pike Road then, or at least a large number of them, farmed. And then in the early 80s, farming became less profitable.
People did not realize this, but when I was a young man, Montgomery was one of the biggest cattle counties in the state.
Yeah, that's right.
Bubba had a lot of cows.
Give you another fact. Until Pike Road, Montgomery County was the only county east of the Mississippi River that only had one city incorporated within the county.
Is that right?
That's right.
Before Pike Road started?
Before Pike Road was
Was that planned that way? Did they sort of take all the land? Would they take all the land? Because all the land's...
Yeah, I don't know. But I've always thought that was an interesting fact. The only county east of the Mississippi River where only one town existed before the incorporation of Pike Road. So.
Well, tell me this. Talking about staying in education, what committees would you like to be on if you're in the Senate?
Well, I practice law, so obviously the judiciary would be something I'd be interested in. And because of my family background, the Ag Committee is something that would mean a lot to me. Wide variety of chicken houses, cattle industry, row crops throughout the district, Elmore County being heavily agricultural, Crenshaw County the same, and then South Montgomery County. That would be a committee that I would be very interested in being on. I do have that background though for the Judicial Committee, and I think it'd be a benefit certainly benefit to have me on there. There's
You
very few
practice
lawyers.
Well, you practice law here in Montgomery.
I do.
How many years you been practicing law?
That's one of those you got to think about. 18 years, 17, 18 years.
Where'd you
now.
go to college and law school?
Went to AUM, graduated with a degree in international studies, which that and a nickel could buy you a piece of bubble gum maybe, but it did get me to law school, and I graduated from Jones Law School. Went over to Soviet Union in 1988 on an exchange trip and became very interested. That was in high school, so that international studies really something I thrived in. So.
Well, going back to committee assignments, Brubaker had a real interest in education, and we talked about that a little bit before. I don't know that he didn't chair the education committee in the Senate, and he was a real advocate of charter schools, was he not?
I believe so, and I think, charter schools I think are wonderful. As long as there's somebody that's regulating them, and there's a commission, and I think Senator Marsh with the Accountability Act has helped with that. Montgomery County, I think, just got one of the newest ones in the state approved last week, maybe the second or the third in the state that's been approved. Montgomery County certainly has a reason to want and need charter schools, and to me it's pretty simple. I think competition breeds success. And sometimes when you become stagnant and there's only one game in town, and that being the public schools of Montgomery County, you don't look for new innovative ways to educate your children. I've got 5 children, and I can tell you, you know this, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every child learns different. And so I think from the standpoint of having charter schools, if you can teach those individual children rather than following a big game plan that comes from the top down, you teach from the bottom up. Wonderful teachers, some of them in Montgomery County. My mother was a teacher, and I think they're going to have a big impact on the children of Montgomery County.
Do you think that what is the sentence? But your district does not encompass a lot of the schools that have been failing here in Montgomery, but it does affect your district, though, does it not?
It does, and you think about this, and we have Senate district lines, but really what happens across the street in District 26 affects District 25 and so forth. But when and I don't want to misquote and give you information that's completely wrong, but my understanding is that Montgomery County Public Schools, unless it was a magnet high school, that all other high schools in the county were failing. And that's a pretty strong indictment on the public school system. Again, maybe not each individual teacher, and quite honestly, I think a lot of that starts at home. And it's hard to correct that in a 7-hour day, 9 months out of the year, but I think we can do something a little better, and I think we can help.
Well, sometimes I'll notice these lists that come out and rank the top schools in the state that are the highest ACT and college entrance exams and the highest test scores in the entire state. And obviously the normal schools are there: Mountain Brooks here, Vestavia, Homewood, Huntsville, Madison, a couple high schools in Mobile. And then all of a sudden, all the schools in Montgomery are failing, but one school, the Lamp School, is the #1 school in Alabama, period.
Right. Yep.
It beats Mountain Brook. How do you get in that Lamp School? How does that work?
Well, my oldest 2 actually graduated from Lamp, so and
Did
I don't
have to take a test to get in there or something?
Well, it started fairly early on, and quite honestly, I'm getting to be an old man, and I don't remember 18 years ago how my oldest daughter got in. I know there's a feeder school. She went from Forest Avenue to Baldwin, and then to Lamp, and then my second oldest child, Reagan, who obviously named after who I think the best president ever was, went from Del Rey to Baldwin and then to Forest Avenue. But it is academically based, how you score on tests and what your GPA is. And the fear that I have is that if you start to water that down, if you start to lower those standards, Steve, you've heard before, the old axiom that a flock of birds can fly only as fast as the slowest bird. Well, you don't want to water those schools down. You want them to keep performing at a high level.
Well, it's a bright star. I mean, you sit there and look at it and you think, man, what kids go to that school? How do they get in there?
A lot smarter than me. They wouldn't let me in the school building. I guarantee you they're smarter than.
Have you seen those same lists, though? Lamp leads
Sure.
every school in Alabama.
Well, how about this? Not just Alabama, but for years in a row, they were in the top 20, 25 in the nation.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
It's like
USA
the
Today.
average
25.
ACT is like 30.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Right.
I mean, so it's,
Probably could have doubled my ACT score and wouldn't have gotten it.
Tell me this, though. Education is a problem locally, but tell me how we solve the general fund. If you get in the state senate, and you've got some major problems. As you know, education has got 2/3 of the state tax dollars now, with sales and income tax going to education, and they have kind of whittled away a little bit at that and taken some of the. People don't realize this, but the library system and even the archives is funded by education budget, which if someone took it to court probably wouldn't fly. But you still got 1/3 no stagnant growth in the general fund, and you've got some money-eating monsters that are growing over there, like Medicaid, prisons, and we've got an acute road program in this state. I think some of the senators from the northern tier of the state, especially Madison, some of the real growth areas of the state, are saying we gonna have to do something to keep up with other states in infrastructure. So what do you? That's a big question, but just tell me what your thoughts are on the general fund, on gas tax or that sort of thing.
Sure. Let me give you kind of a broad answer to that question, and then we'll get down to specifics. First of all, I think whether it be roads, whether it be schools, the first thing that any legislature's got to do is figure out on their own whether or not there is a problem. Okay. Not not just be told that there is, but to look at it and see if there is a problem. The second thing is to find out whether or not with existing resources you can cure that problem, if in fact there is, and if not, then you go to plan B, which is how do we cure the problem if there is one and we don't have the existing resources. I know there's been talk about a gas tax, and the last time gas tax was raised would have been the early 90s, I believe, 1992.
It was in the 80s.
80s.
I'm not sure. I'm not positive. You're right, 90s. That's right.
Been a long time
I was in
ago.
there. I voted for a lot of Wallace taxes. I didn't vote for that one.
Well, you know, here's the thing about
voted.
it. Here's the thing about any gas tax or any tax. It needs to be what it's for. Okay. In other words, the gas tax. You don't raise gases on tax if it's not for roads. Okay.
Right.
Second issue is that like so many other things, government tries to unsuccessfully govern from the top down. Sometimes it needs to be from the bottom up. And when I say that, I say that any gas tax that's proposed certainly would have to have an element of the local delegations, be it a county commission, city council, the folks that are on the ground and know where that money needs to be spent. And the third thing is the federal government, you know, there's a proposal for a $1.5 trillion tax plan, infrastructure plan from the president. If some of that money were to come to Alabama on an 80-20 split or a 90-10 split, that means, you know, every dollar that we can raise and put towards infrastructure, then, you know, we get another $8 or either $9 from the federal government, and I think that's important to realize. And quite honestly, you know, infrastructure is one of those areas that the state of Alabama should be responsible for. There are lots of things I think the state's involved in that maybe they shouldn't be, but obviously that's one of the issues that the state of Alabama, and it's important to attract new businesses in the state and continue those existing businesses that are here.
Well, I know you hear this, and I hear it quite often, and I'll be on one of the local television stations on Talkback here in Montgomery and CBS 8. Now, invariably people will call in and say, why can't we have a lottery in this state? And I think that incrementally the resistance has gone down to that, but it seems to me that I know it's not a panacea and it's not going to solve a lot of problems, but the reason people would vote for it if it was put on the ballot, I believe, is they tired of their money going out of state. My question, I don't put you on the spot, but it seems unfair for a legislator not to let their people vote on something like that.
Well, I think, you know, that's a good point. My personal opinion, you didn't ask, but I'll tell you, I think that the whole gambling issue, I think, things get worse, not better.
Yeah.
It may be a short-term solution to a long-term problem.
And it's a digress, it goes down.
It does, it does. But with that being said, some issues are so important that it's, and there's such a wide variety of voices out there that, I can see there being a willingness or a want or a need to allow folks around the state to have a voice, a direct voice, not just the representative republic like that we are, but rather a direct voice or input.
I think I had asked Senator Brubaker that question, and that's about where he was on it. He says, look, I'm not going to vote for a lottery personally. I'm against it. I think it's digressive, it's regressive, the money goes down, it's going to cause problems. However, I think it's wrong for me not let my people vote on something, because that's all you're doing.
Sure, that's
you're just
right.
letting your people vote on it.
I'm any state senator or representative should be at least just a voice for the people back home, and if there's no clear-cut voice one way or another, then
that's the way I looked at the seat when I was in the House from Pike County. I said, look, this is y'all's seat. I'm just kind of a conduit for y'all's district. And fortunately, I always felt like I voted my district because I was kind of from there.
Right. Right.
I knew the people.
Right. You weren't an outsider trying to make nice. You knew you were a grassroots guy.
Same way you are.
Absolutely.
You grew up in that district, so you know kind of what people think. You're being the mainstream of your district.
And that's the good thing about it is that also from the just the pure political side of things, I've been fortunate to serve on the Montgomery County Republican Executive Committee since 2006, and then currently serve on the State Republican Executive Committee since 2010. So you get to hear different ideas from individuals, conservative individuals like myself throughout the state. And it's interesting. The folks from North Alabama don't always think the same way as the folks from South Alabama.
No, it's different. It's interesting.
We're in the same party, and we believe basically the same ideas, and but on different specific issues, we can come up with different solutions. So.
Well, our time's up, folks. Our guest tonight has been State Senate candidate Will Barfoot, who's running for the State Senate District 25 from Montgomery, Elmore, and Crenshaw County. The seat currently held by Dick Brubaker. And he wants y'all to vote for him on June 5th. He'll be here before you know it. We thank Bill for being with us, and we thank you viewers for watching Alabama Politics. Hope you tune again next week. Thank you.